And we are back. I want to thank Aaron Dykes for doing the news segment of the show tonight. And when I'm done doing this special report, Aaron's going to come back and interview our technology reporter, Jason Burmis, on the Connect system that the Pentagon is now using. It face scans you in your own home and looks through your walls. Talk about Big Brother and how we're just inviting it into our house. That's coming up with Aaron Dykes and Jason Burmis after the next break. But first, I want to get into censorship. A few days ago, we wrote an article at Infowars.com that got picked up by the Drudge Report. Dozens of other big publications, European, British papers, U.S. News picked it up. ClimateDepot.com, Marc Morano was also covering it. One of the first places we actually saw it. It's the sociology and environmental studies professor, Carrie Norgard. And this story that got really big focused on the point that her paper said that climate skeptics needed to be treated for mental illness. And of course, treatment generally in this system means drugs. And if they're saying they need to treat us, that means in a psychiatric facility. This is what we saw in Stalinist Russia, Nazi Germany. They used the psychiatrist and psychologist as the secret police to say that person's mentally ill, they don't like the state, arrest them. I mean, everybody knows about this. Well, there's been a new big development here. They have flagged and removed a video and told us that they're reviewing others and may ban our channel. And I have the letter that we'll put up on screen here from YouTube on one of our YouTube channels that has 190+ million views. Of course, we're on XM, we're on over 100 AM and FM stations, but we do reach a whole different audience via YouTube. And now they're talking about banning the official Alex Jones channel because people complained about the video. So now if I get up here and call this woman authoritarian, call this dangerous, tie it into Cass Sunstein, the White House regulations are, who says fine, ban, or even go after people that don't believe in man-made global warming. He works at the White House. All of this is going on. And we have a site with 100+ million views, 193+ million views, and YouTube's now saying, we may completely get rid of your channel, and we're going to start erasing your videos. They have erased some videos. We have an article up at Infowars.com right now dealing with this by Paul Watson, that now if you criticize the climate power-grabbing cult, your videos disappear into the memory hole. Now, I wasn't just talking about her in the video. I was mentioning Cass Sunstein. These other professors saying kill babies up to age 3 for the earth, kill old people, arrest climate skeptics, arrest Lord Monckton. This is what they're calling for. They're saying make it a crime like Holocaust denial. This is what's being pushed. This is pure authoritarianism. And so now preemptively, before I take legal action, which we're having to look at, we're having to remove a bunch of our own videos because they're saying, we get 3 of these, your site is gone. As we preemptively try to file motions and things through the YouTube system to try to block this. Now, remember, these are the people that say we're mentally ill. Others say arrest us. Others say fine us, censor us. The White House regulations says this, and it's beginning to happen. It's beginning to happen, and it is so creepy. I've been on YouTube 6 years. I've reached total over 600 million viewers in that time, conservatively. I have my Obama deception that's got over 40 million views on YouTube alone. They've pulled that before, and we had to file and get it put back up. But this has only happened 4 or 5 times. Now it's happening. Oh, and they said that was racism then. Nothing about race with Obama in that film. So they're scared. And they're coming after us. And regardless of if you agree with my speech or not, you need to defend it. You need to defend everybody's free speech. I don't agree with the Ku Klux Klan, but I defend their right to free speech. I don't agree with the new Black Panther Party, but I've got to defend their speech because that's the First Amendment. That's how our country was founded. Now, joining us is a former congressional advisor to the Senate, the preeminent expert in the United States, at ClimateDepot.com, just chronicling hour by hour, minute by minute, the absurdity of these people. And as their tens of billions of dollars of investment to bring in this global corporate fascist takeover through the Green Police. As it implodes, Al Gore has said, we've got to get desperate. We've got to, kids, tell your parents to shut up. I mean, they are getting more dangerous than ever. And just a few days ago, his video is now being removed and blocked. When he was on with us and other videos we posted on the same subject, he was warning that they were coming after our liberties and our speech and that they were going into a very dangerous phase. And now we're seeing it. These are very scary people, but they believe they're saving the earth, so I guess it's okay. We're going to go to Mark here in just a moment. I wanted to preface this in the special report, though, and I am breathless because we're seeing free speech destroyed in this country. It's YouTube. They advertise it as this commons. I didn't violate any of their terms of service. I read it right there, and they are now censoring us. And it's Alex Jones today. It's going to be you tomorrow. And it's because we're effective. Now, here's a short clip that got Fortune 500 sponsorship. The list is too long to read. This was a public service announcement. They were getting set to air. They screened it, and it shows people at their offices who won't make carbon tax acquiescence being blown up. It shows children. It looks like the 6th grade being blown up in bloody mass if they don't do what the teacher, a similar type, I guess, to this professor, you know, who's pushing this global warming thing, well, they've got to be punished, and they're blown up. And who knows, because I'm going to show you this short clip, perhaps this video will be taken down, even though it's fair use, and I'm critiquing them trying to acclimate us with the image of violence. She's asking the kids, oh, you won't make a choice to cut your carbon footprint, not take a hot bath, you know, turn the lights out more often, you know, use less so you got more taxes to pay the superstate and the bureaucracy. We're going to murder children. But we're not supposed to show you this. This makes them look bad. They'll probably ban this. Do you understand that? Let's go to this clip and then Marc Morano.
Okay, class, thank you so much for today, and I will see you all tomorrow. Oh, just before you go, I just need to press this little button here. Now, everybody, please remember to read chapters 5 and 6 on volcanoes and glaciation. Except for Philip and Tracy, of course.
Shows soccer players being killed, coaches being killed, men and women being murdered. The whole clip is on YouTube. But I guess it's okay on YouTube because the group put it out there and is very proud of it. So again, they're implying we're going to murder you if you don't go along with it, because she asked the kids in the full clip. And of course, they'll try to copyright us, so I can't show you the whole clip here, even though this is news and I'm reporting on it. I'd have to go challenge it in court. Just go watch it yourself. She says, what changes are you going to make? And they all go, I'll quit taking baths. I'll quit this and that. And some kids go, I'm not going to make any changes. She goes, all right. And then it goes to all these other instances. Folks, these people, when you read their writings, they're maniacal. We have it posted in full in our article, Green Fascism, The Growing Threat of Eco-Tyranny, a key article that just goes through a smattering, a small sampling of them saying ration, arrest, shut down, censor, kill. And then we're like, oh, this lady looks like a kook. She looks like a nut. You're saying we're nuts. Oh, shut them down, shut them down, shut Alex up. Marc Morano, this is totally creeping me out. I mean, things are moving so quickly that they've now banned this video and are trying to ban our other videos and shut down a channel with 193 million views. What do you think of this?
Well, first of all, I guess I should be honored. It's the first time I've been add to my resume that I've been banned on YouTube now, based on our previous interview. What you showed was a 10-10-10 video, and it was from October 10th, 2010. And it's from a UK group, as you mentioned, corporate sponsorship. This was the global warming activist idea of humor, and it was a gory, graphic video that was on the level of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something like that. And you're right, this is on YouTube. This was shown on television. This was directed toward kids. It involved kids in it. And this was their idea of, oh, this is just funny, because the idea is, and this is what they can't stand. And even people like Tom Friedman, the New York Times, has been caught praising China's dictatorial policies because they don't allow dissent, and they can just do what's, quote, like right for the people. They don't like dissent. They don't like anyone disagreeing, and this is what they wish they could do. And it falls in line, blowing up someone's head and blowing them up in the classroom, falls in line with what they've stated. Nuremberg-style trials for global warming skeptics, crimes against humanity if you disagree, treason from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It goes on down the line. These are not isolated cases. This was not, oh, just a little satirical video they showed. This was their inner impulse. And in terms of the, you know, the looks, if you will, of Professor Carrie Norgard, it isn't her outside looks. It's people always say, well, it's the inner beauty. It's what's on the inside. And the bottom line is her views and her sociological studies are rotten to the core. They're ultimately anti-human nature. And all we're doing is pointing that out. And for YouTube, it seems to be here having a massive double standard to allow this kind of stuff. As far as I know, you can watch Robert F. Kennedy Jr. give his speech calling for treason for political figures who disagree on man-made global warming. That hasn't been pulled. But yet, you know, you question someone, start going after some of their what have been accurately dubbed totalitarian views and Stalinistic views. And there's an update, by the way, to that, Alex, which is even more Stalinist than we talked about the other day. That it's just this is ridiculous on its face, and this is clearly, if you will, a witch hunt.
Mark, continue. Get into this new update, because they're now going into the memory hole and actually excising things in her paper.
Yes, what's happened is, since you, of course, highlighted it, we had a Climate Depot, Rush Limbaugh's brought it up, the Drudge Reports featured it, multiple UK papers. This made international firestorm. The idea that global warming skeptics were something somehow wrong with them, and that we were akin to racist and slave owners, and that, you know, we needed to be treated. Well, the University of Oregon, where Professor Carrie Norgard, the sociologist, actually resides, decided that this didn't exist anymore. They removed the words treatment, treated from the website. It no longer exists. They didn't make a notation. They didn't make an announcement. They offered no explanation. Just poof, it was gone. And it goes deeper. Professor Carrie Norgard's page at the University of Oregon, poof, went missing. Era, 404 era, web, nowhere to be found. Her email address, gone, replaced with a private or some Yahoo type email address, no longer a university email address. And on my website, Climate Depot, we called this Stalinesque. This was rewriting of history, Soviet style. Here you have a controversy, someone you don't like. She, I guess somehow the powers that be decided she was a liability at that moment for the global warming community. So they went poof and disappeared her. And this is just like on my website. I have a book called The Commissar Vanishes. Stalin, as different commissars in the old Soviet Union would fall out of his favor, would either be sent to the Gulag or murdered, would then just new photos of them would appear with Stalin, and they would just be absent, just no explanation missing from the photos. And as time went on, member commissar after commissar would slowly disappear, and suddenly you just had Stalin standing alone. Well, that's what the University of Oregon was practicing, their amateur version of rewriting history. You don't like something? Oh, it never existed. It's gone. It's not there. Fortunately, Google Cache or Google Cache was there to find it, and you can, and that's how we actually have the screenshots and everything else. It's like WhatsApp with that aided in that, and we have all this up here, and it's a amazing development. Beyond that, ClimateGate professor Michael Mann from Penn State University, who loves to tout the fact that Penn State University cleared him of wrongdoing. Penn State University cleared their own cash cow, their $6 million global warming cash cow, of wrongdoing in ClimateGate, has come out now in defense of Professor Carrie Norgard, and he's gone beyond the pale, and he calls her, quote, a very respected, responsible scientist. So the ClimateGate scientists some of them have come out and now are defending Professor Norgard as her own university is disassociating themselves from her, removing the word treatment, removing her webpage, removing her email address. This is right out of the playbook from 1950s Soviet Union.
Well, and I want to be clear. She's a public figure, and I rarely get into how people look because I'm not the best-looking person in the world. The photos, all of them, it's not even that she physically looks bad. She looks crazed. And I've had national TV show goofy photos of me and make fun of me, and I didn't call for it to be shut down. And I was simply, here's the lady saying we're crazy and need treatment, and I said, here she is, because it's funny. And that was my only point. But then when you read what she's saying, it's very, very dangerous. It's this idea of they won't debate us on the facts. They just want to silence us. And all of them constantly, I mean, you saw the articles in the last year out of England and Europe and even the U.S. where all these professors say, it's time for green fascism. In fact, guys, search the term real fast here on the fly. I mean, there were a bunch of them the last few years. You know, academic says, I'm sure you know the answer, but let's see if I know it. Academic says, you know, it's time to bring in authoritarianism to force it. What's the name of those? I mean, there's so many of them. Mark, who were they?
Well, just recently, we have Professor Lau from the SUNY, the State of New York University, came out and was calling for human engineering to combat global warming. And they're trying to say it's voluntary right now, but it's not going to be voluntary. Once they get this kind of technology, this is very frightening stuff. So we have this on the heels of that, where he's openly calling for psychiatric drugs to make us conserve more, to make us be repulsed at the taste and sight of meat. They're talking about medicating the population. They're talking about making babies smaller in the womb so that we have smaller carbon footprints. Out of England, and I'll just be posting this story, a woman was banned from going to her doctor. And she was actually thrown out of her practice because her carbon footprint was too big by how long she commuted. This is in the actual newspaper. We'll be going up on Climate Depot. This is the insanity.
Whoa. Let me stop you, because they're openly talking about not giving people medical care because they need to go ahead and die under the death panels for your carbon footprint. I've seen, you know, the New York Times say, hey, the recession depression is good because it lowers carbon footprint. You're telling me in England now they're saying, hey, you can't come see the doctor because you're commuting too far. That's what they talk about in those weird Planopolis things they show kids, where people think it's a joke that we made, you know, making them look like fascists. No, this is what they really want.
Yeah, 83 or 82-year-old woman got a formal letter saying she no longer could go to the surgery center because it was considered too far in her carbon footprint. They urged her to find a closer one. They would no longer see her. The lady is in stunned disbelief.
But wait a minute. Prince Charles has royal trains, dozens of aircraft, but he says don't take a hot bath.
Yes, and that's right. And Al Gore has, of course, private jets and limousines. And, of course, he says take city transit. Don't bother with, don't bother with your own car, or, you don't even drive a hybrid. He tells you to take the city bus. When was the last time Al Gore was on a city bus? And I'm not making that up. When Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio came out at the Academy Awards, they flashed on the screen when Al Gore won his Oscar, use city transit. They had these little helpful hints. When was the last time Leonardo DiCaprio was on the city bus? This is that idea that the masses have one set of rules, and the leaders, i.e. the Politburo.
It's pure eugenics, double standard. They want us out of their way. The good news is they are being exposed. I mean, I'll be getting my hair cut and hear women talking about how it's all a scam, global warming attacks people. All the liberals I know have pretty much woken up to it.
Even President Obama now says it's not even possible to talk about climate change because the members don't buy it. So it's amazing. His fellow Democrats aren't with him. But the problem is they're doing this all behind the scenes bureaucratically right now. So even if the public rejects it, even if Congress rejects it, we're still getting it. And that's what we're getting through the unelected bureaucrats at the EPA. In a way, they're having the ultimate final victory behind the scenes there. We've won every battle, but we're losing the war. That's the irony of this whole thing.
Because the system controls the dominant media. They control the systems like YouTube. YouTube, owned by Google, put a light bulb on Earth Hour up over the weekend. And at first, it had a light switch where you could dim your pixels. I guess the dark age is good for humanity, that Maurice Strong talks about, a post-industrial world. But then later I went back for the second half of the day, and it was just automatically dark, automatically flipped to dark. So it's this idea.
They always start out by saying it's voluntary, and then eventually it doesn't turn out voluntary. We saw this with seatbelt laws across the country. Every state, well, it's just voluntary. You don't have to wear a seatbelt, but we're making it voluntary. And then cops won't pull you over for it. Then soon it became mandatory. This is the way they do it. And this is this human engineering, along with what Professor Norgard is talking about, in the treatment. It starts out, they emphasize, oh, it's going to be voluntary. But guess what? Once you get into it, once it starts, it's not voluntary after it begins. And that's what's so scary about this. That's the history of government, history of people. The most violent institutions throughout history have been governments. And people need to remember that when we empower governments and institutions with what they're talking about, the ability to do psychiatric drugs to make us like and dislike things, the ability to shrink ourselves to reduce our carbon footprint, the ability to tell us we can't go to a doctor because we're commuting too far and our carbon imprint is too big, the ability to regulate our shower heads, the ability to destroy washing machines with Energy Star regulations, the ability to destroy our ice makers, the abilities to take away SUVs because of carbon-based fears, the ability to control your thermostat, the ability to skyrocket your electricity rates. It just goes on and on. They literally will control every aspect of our lives. As the German climate advisor said, a CO2 budget for every man, woman, and child.
Hey, Germany, as you know, passed regulations that by 2020-something, you're not allowed to have a single-parent home. You've all got to live in communal homes. And Der Spiegel, I remember a few years ago, had an article like this was reasonable. I mean, this is total corporate Borg, pod people, crazy cult. And then I make a joke and say, look at this person. You know, she says we're crazy. She looks crazy. But like you said, hey, let's stick to what she says. The point is, it's still, she's a public figure. It's my joke. And they're going to shut me down for that. I mean, it just shows their authoritarian impulse is so frightening.
Yeah, and I remember it was Popular Science, I believe, a few years ago had an article. Can we just allow people to reproduce willy-nilly? And their idea was essentially that the government would control sperm banks, and if a couple or someone wanted to have a child, you'd have to go apply for it, do all the paperwork, and the government would decide based on, you know, population numbers and economic factors and sociological factors, whether your area, whether you could actually have these children. This is just the impulse of the intellectual left, and it's been that way. If you look at the history of the 20th century, this is what they do. They think it's just bean counters. It's the arrogance, the fatal arrogance of this central planners. The more the plans plan, the more the planners plan, and that's what they have this impulse where they want to control all aspects. Regulating carbon is a wonderful way for them to do it. Upcoming UN summit in Rio is going to be regulating all aspects of our life. As I mentioned last time, it's going to cover endangered species, it's going to cover sustainable development. So they're going to be able to talk about the waterways, transportation, deforestation, agriculture. Every aspect of human endeavor will be subject to Earth regulations so we don't dishonor the rights of Mother Earth. And that phrase, rights of Mother Earth, has actually appeared at the most recent UN conference. We're not making this stuff up.
And really, it's just about them having a total power grab. We're about to end this interview. I know you've got to go, Mark, and get back to your work at climatedepot.com, but I did find one of those articles I mentioned. There's so many. Let's put it up on screen. Global warming alarmist calls for eco-gulags, his words, not mine, to re-educate climate deniers. And again, we went and searched, arrest climate deniers, imprison them, and we found dozens of professors, U.S., England, Europe, and it's all the same. And we have Dr. Pianka at the Texas Academy of Sciences getting a standing ovation when he said, bring in Chinese police state, arrest people, kill 90%. And now, I mean, I've seen one of the heads of the Green Party in England call for this. A Finnish environmentalist guru has gone further than any other global warming alarmist and openly calling for fascism as a necessary step. And he goes on to say, we will re-educate in gulags. We will do all this. We will arrest you. We will, discipline, probation, enforcement, and oppression. These are their words.
Yes.
How they're going to oppress us. I mean, can't people see that this political correctness is a way to flog us into submission to these people? It has nothing to do with the environment, and it's all about their total will to power. You say we're winning the intellectual battle but losing the war because these authoritarians squat on us in their hippie camo garb. They're not even really hippies. They're just total control freaks. How do we defeat them? How do you see this unfolding? What can we do to defeat the greatest threat to human liberty?
Well, right now, the greatest threat to human liberty is going to be coming through the Environmental Protection Agency, and we need to defund the EPA. We need to cripple the EPA's ability to regulate these coal plants, to regulate carbon dioxide. And this is what's happening, despite the fact that Congress failed to do anything, the United Nations failed to do anything. President Obama has the U.S. EPA now doing all the things that everyone else failed, but doing it successfully through the bureaucracy. And this is the way it works. Liberalism has so many options. The intellectual left have so many options using the power of the state. They put on the pretense that we have a choice. And we can be all cheering, oh, we defeated the cap and trade bill, the global warming bill in Congress. Oh, we defeated the United Nations. but yet it's still coming. It's still coming down the pike. They just keep coming, layer after layer, wave after wave of their nonsense. They don't give up, and we've got to raise this to a national dialogue. I'm disappointed so far in the alleged opposition party in Washington, the Republican Party, raising this as an issue right now. And you have people like Mayor Bloomberg, the former Republican in New York, bragging that they're stopping hundreds of coal plants and their alliances with environmental groups, and now the EPA is joining them. This is the lifeblood of our society. I would also argue people like John Holdren, even worse than openly calling for this kind of totalitarian things, is what he did in the 1970s. He opposed Norman Borlaug, the Nobel Prize-winning agronomist, the agricultural scientist, in his efforts to bring golden rice to Asia, which ended up feeding millions of people and brought people life and fed people and helped and support people that would not otherwise be alive today. This was John Holdren saying we don't want better agricultural practices. We don't want foods that resist pests. We don't want all these people eating and living because the earth can't handle it. Openly, nakedly anti-human agenda. And where is history record John Holdren versus the man named the late Norman Borlaug? John Holdren, once again, is a chump of humankind and science, and yet he's still feted.
Well, in the 70s, they said by 2000 we'd be in an ice age.
They said we'd be in an ice age. They said, we would have such massive famines from overpopulation. They live, and those predictions live to be laughed at. And as we've talked about, now the global warming alarmists have learned most of the dire predictions they make are long after the person making them will be dead. So in other words, if someone's 60 years old today, they're making predictions of the year 2075 long after they'll be dead. So they have learned their lesson to some degree. They try to make the predictions much further down the road.
All right. Well, let me just ask you this in closing. On the First Amendment issue, the fact that they're nakedly censoring more and more, not just calling for it, I think that shows how weak they are.
It does. They can't handle dissent or debate. Al Gore in 1992 declared debate about global warming over. Al Gore has never once consented to a debate. You have major scientists like James Hansen, who's never been involved in a climate debate. And all these guys, they claim there's no debate. They claim it's over. Michael Mann, the guy I mentioned previously, will not appear in any debates. Why? Because all the nonsense they spew would be destroyed within the first 5 minutes, and they'd be rambling incoherently, and they know that. So what they do is they try to suppress debate. This has been since the beginning. If you're an impartial viewer, don't know anything about the science, which side are you going to believe? The guy who's out there screaming, there's no debate, it's all settled, and all these people with huge credentials, Nobel Prize winners, former UN scientists, PhDs in chemistry and oceanography and climatology, all saying this is bunk, it's nonsense. And yet the people claiming it, the people that are funded with government blessing, won't debate them. This is why the public turns against them. They know it's nonsense. If you're going to buy someone's theory, you want to see the theory.
And they run around and lie. Just 2 years ago, they were still saying not one scientist disagrees, 100%. And it turned out the majority of those that had their name put on the UN thing as approving were just invited to the conference. It didn't mean they agreed with it.
And not only that, but they were anthropologists and sociologists. And it turns out that the entire report, it comes down to like 52 scientists, and give or take even less, depending on what part of the report on the sensitivity of whether CO2 really, the kind of global warming we should expect from rising emissions. It comes down to much smaller than that. And scientists at the UN have admitted that that's nonsense when they try to claim thousands of scientists have agreed. All that means is they've participated in this giant report, but when the report itself is just this big mess, but a close-knit group of 52, many of the ClimateGate scientists who reappear all over the place, came out and tried to shape the message that the science is unequivocal, and they actually had to agree line by line with UN bureaucrats and government leaders around the world. This is not a scientific process. One scientist from the UK said the United Nations is a political body masquerading as a science group. It's an abomination. It's the silliest thing you've ever heard for anyone to try to claim.
Well, I mean, look how obvious it is.
Abomination. It's quasi-religious, so I guess abomination would probably work there.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've got a global government body with a bunch of bureaucrats that want more funding saying the Earth's about to die, give us all the power or you're dead.
And we won't debate anyone. We won't allow challenges. And we find that I have a whole report on all the scientists that resigned. We had UN scientists who sit in at meetings and say, we're going to make this next report so alarming that people will have to act. And they come out and testify to this fact. These reports were written before they even met to write the reports.
But I mean, look at all their defeats. I mean, there's just so much points here. But I mean, look at how they said the Himalayas would melt, didn't happen.
Look at Climate Expo today. From 5 years ago, the Arctic ice has now gained the combined size of the state of Texas and Oklahoma combined for the same date in 2007. That's how much expanded ice we're gutting from the, quote, rapidly death spiral.
It was supposed to be all gone, right, by last year?
That's right. There were many predictions, 2010, 2012, 2014, that all Arctic ice. And now global sea ice is now greater than it was in the 1980s, before most of this hysteria started. In fact, it's greater today, this week, than it was in most of the years of the 1980s on this date. Global sea ice, if you combine the North and South.
Listen, folks, we better use the internet and free speech and defend it or lose it. ClimateDepot.com. Get that address out to everybody. Marc Morano, thanks for joining us on short notice with this development, and we really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you, Alex. We don't know if anyone will ever see this video, but we're still doing it.
Yeah.
Don't know if it'll make the light of day.
Well, they're the boss. I mean, they said so,
Yeah.
We both need to be locked up in a mental institution.
That's right. And imagine if the government gets into regulating the internet now. And this is a scary world. The internet's the last bastion of freedom we have, and it's horrifying to think. It's one thing to even have self-control, but now we're talking about there's all various plots that keep reappearing in the United States Senate and the House to try to regulate the internet, and it's very scary because that can be easily manipulated.
Marc, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you.
All right, there goes Marc Morano, ClimateDepot.com. Folks, this is not a game, and this is not a joke, okay? And I'm here to tell you, the enviro power grabbers could care less about the environment. They never talk about toxic waste dumping or other stuff that's going on. It's all about the carbon dioxide you're breathing or that you're exhaling. It's a total and complete power grab. And remember Al Gore with the fake graphic of the polar bear that couldn't swim when it's the greatest land animal swimmer, period. Or they always show the North Pole, the South Pole in the summer, which is the opposite. Whenever the Arctic is in winter, the North Pole is in summer. But the point is, they'll show a satellite image, and they'll show it in the spring and summer where every year it contracts. That's like the North Passage is available from the United States over to Russia or Canada over to Russia during the summer, but it freezes up during the winter. That's why they have icebreakers. The point is they prey on the public's interest and they say, public, since you're ignorant, we're going to show you in the summer it melting and say, look, it's melting, it'll soon be gone. They don't show you the rest of the satellite imagery that in the winter it goes back. This is what the ice caps do. And so they'll point a camera at glaciers collapsing into the ocean and say, look, they're collapsing, they're melting. That's what rain does on the North and South Pole. And then it builds up and pushes out and flows as ice flows towards the sea. And always during the spring and summer, the glaciers are falling into the water. But they say, look, it's collapsing in the summer. Look, there's sea lions on the rocks where it was ice. Give Al Gore money. Give Rothschild money. World government. Look, polar bears can't swim. They can only swim 200, 300 miles. They say the polar bears are almost all dead. I keep saying their numbers have doubled. That's a conservative estimate. In many areas, there's fivefold. Look it up. Look up polar bear numbers exploding. They are the biggest liars. I was in a pizza place a few years ago, and they had children's local art projects for the environment in the entryway to this pizza place in Port Aransas, Texas. I was down there at the beach. And it was all penguins crying because there was no ice left, and polar bears who were in the water and couldn't swim, who were drowned. And it was all these horrified children being terrified, and this is the type of garbage that we deal with. All right, that said, this is part of InfoWars Nightly News that goes out to our subscribers, airs on some cable systems around the United States. We reach on the radio 3 million people a day, 15 million a week, all total with podcasts, YouTube videos, shortwave, XM. It's going to be hard for them to shut me down, but they're trying. And I'm going to take this video right now. We normally wait a day or so before we upload it to YouTube. And I'm going to upload this InfoWars Nightly News special report right now. Because regardless of what you think about me and my views and my ideas, the fact that they're censoring the videos that we did and banning them and about to shut down our channel, the fact that they're doing this, and the fact that it's like the Soviet Union where some little commissar complains and they say, we agree, it's offensive. I can't even put videos up criticizing the TSA now. They take those down. You're like, well, go somewhere else. YouTube's over half the video views in the world every day. It's where the fight is. And it's a rigged game. Just like Ron Paul really won those first states, they cheated him. We're still winning with the moral authority, but we're not going to be here if you don't support us. I mean, if I even told you about the dirty tricks behind the scenes, you know, the stuff that goes on here, you wouldn't believe it. I don't spend my time complaining about what's going on behind the scenes here. The death threats, the slap suits, all of it. Because I expect that. I'm over the target. And let me tell you something. As I get more and more over the target, you know, my grandfather was, like so many other people's grandfathers, was in World War II. He always told my dad and my uncle, he said, oh, I was a cook in the Army Air Corps. And he was a cook after his 22 missions. That's true. But after he died, many years after he died, they finally got into the storage there at the old farmhouse, got in the attic, and there were his annuals and letters and medals and awards. Because, you know, to people that have actually been in a bunch of combat, it's something they don't want to talk about. They're not proud of it, even if it was for a good cause. And I just think about the fact that there's that old saying when you were going over Europe that you knew when you got over the factories, you knew when you got over the military, you know when you got over the forces that you were over them, because that's when you're getting the flak. The big anti-aircraft, toom, 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 shooting at you, and then flying through all that debris and metal. That's what flak does. It shoots up to the altitude of the aircraft, usually about 1,000 feet above, explodes with a bunch of shrapnel that's now moving at 500 miles an hour, and then that just rains into the aircraft as they fly through it. And so it's not fun. But as we get more flak, it lets us know we're over the target. The issue is, though, we need support. We need you to buy war bonds. And war bonds here, we're not funded by George Soros and the New World Order. We're funded by you, the viewer, the listener. We know the bankers are trying to impoverish. You know, I've talked to Jim Tucker and others. And every year at Bilderberg, they throw fits. They say, how can there be 500 protesters outside when we're the middle of Switzerland, up in the mountains? It must have cost them thousands of dollars to get here. Shut down the economies now. Make them so poor they can't protest. Feudal lords, going back thousands of years, get that. Make people so poor that they're so busy trying to get an existence, claw out an existence, that they can't resist you. And that's what this is all about. That's what globalism and fake environmentalism and eugenics and Agenda 21 is all about. Maury Strong says, post-industrial world make you so poor that you can't resist them. I understand that. That's why we're fighting to cut taxes. We're fighting to put fair tariffs on China that the globalists have teamed up with to shut down our country. That's why I'm working so hard to defeat these people and risking my life, because I realize there's no future if we don't beat them. But when you do buy the high-quality water filters at Infowars.com, like ProPure, and get a 10% discount with the promo code WATER, when you buy the books, the videos, you get tools to wake others up, but you also financially support us. When you get a 15-cent-a-day membership or take the 15-day free trial and then decide to sign up at prisonplanet.tv, you're financing us. Because I have to deal with a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and it is the fact that, you have supported us, that you've bought the books, the videos, the T-shirts over the years that has allowed us to do what we do. You know, we fund ourselves the good old-fashioned American way, free market, promoting things we believe in. Subscriptions, advertisers, books, videos, water filters, stuff like that. But it's not that easy. You know, when I get a slap suit, if I don't get the right lawyer, I just got one today. And if I don't get the right lawyer, and if I don't handle it right and deal with it just right, even though it's pure bull, they're going to win and shut us down. And I never come out here and basically yell and scream and whine and even tell you what's going on, because we're dealing with all the attacks on the back end. It's just, you need to understand, folks, we're getting a lot more flack. It's daily now. It's not monthly like it used to be. And we're only here because you're standing with us and right beside us and right behind us and in front of us. Let me tell you, this New World Order is real. It's hardcore. And again, as we get bigger and bigger, as people realize that, wow, what these guys talked about was true, it's happening. As what we've broken down becomes evident to people, we become even more dangerous to the system because we've been proven right. Our credibility is going straight up right now. And the more famous I get, the more powerful I get, the more renowned I get, the more danger I'm in, the more danger my family's in, the more danger my crew is in. So when I ask you to support us, I ask you to support us so we can give the enemy the biggest fight possible, no matter where this leads. Because I don't mind being killed or set up or put in prison, and the FBI circling around my office as we speak right now. All I ask is that you empower me and get behind us, spreading the word, financially supporting us, so that we can slam them as hard as we can. Because I don't want to fight these people in half measures. That's why I feel like a sack of crap most of the time, because I realize that I'm the best there is, even though I'm terrible, that I'm on the very front lines, tip of the spear, that I have got an incredible responsibility and opportunity for humanity here, and I feel every second like I'm squandering it. But you know what? I can't get down on myself because I'm doing the best I can. So I'm going to ask you to do three things for us. I want you to pray for us. That's number one, what we rely on. We don't believe in miracles, we rely on them. Providence. Pray for providence for InfoWars, the crew, and everything we do. And they put a hedge of protection up around us while the enemy attacks us. We got the devil's attention. We got Sauron's attention. We got the great eye's attention. Pray for us. Spread the word about what we're doing so it's not pearls before swine. And realize that we won't always be here if we don't defeat this. And financially support us. That said, I'm feeling really good because I've done my best. And I realize that, you know, it is what it is. But this is the real deal. Toe-to-toe with the New World Order. And I don't want you behind me. I want you right beside me. All right, we're going to go to break here and come back with Jason Burmis and Aaron Dykes getting into the incredible surveillance grid, the vampire of the New World Order we're inviting into our house, the Connect system, and more. Straight ahead with Aaron Dykes and Jason Burmis. Another extended transmission because we got the passion and the love of liberty. It's InfoWars Nightly News.